welcome to GameGuru Classic and GameGuru Max broadcast number 135. Welcome everyone who's joining us live in the live chat. As always, feel free to ask any questions you like. Pop a little question mark at the end, because later on when we do our Q&A session, I'm just going to scan through really quickly to look for those little question mark characters, just so I can speed things up, get a few extra answers for you in this week's broadcast. As always, we split it up into two sections. The first part is a little demo section, the second part about 10 minutes of questions and answers. But we'll start with the demos, and specifically we'll start with Classic. Nothing new to show you this week, so no new features, no significant activity in the GitHub repository. However, on scanning what's going on Steam this week, I spotted some bargains for you in case you were interested. There are a couple, but the one I've picked out is the Industrial Sewer Pack. It's got some great reviews, so you may be very happy with it, and right now it's 60% off. So go check that out if you want a bargain in GameGuru Classic Land. But what I want to talk about, and what most of this week's broadcast is going to be saturated with, is GameGuru Max. Okay, lots to get through this week, lots of little bits and bobs, and I will deliver on my promise that I get to show you some more RPG mechanics, as indeed that's what everyone is waiting for, as well as VR. But before any of that, I got an email, I think it was about a day ago, and it was really cool. In fact, I knew about this a little bit earlier, but I actually dug out a video, which was pretty cool, so I'm going to start off with that. And it's one of the numerous RPG scripts that you're going to be able to play with, but it's more useful than just within the confines of RPG. So you can probably see it at the top of the screen, NPC Control. This is a behavior, you attach it to a character, but I think the video can explain it much better than I. So I'm just going to play the video for you now, and you can just get the idea. Okay, so there you go. That guy, we used to call him Captain Constipation because his very first version of his animation walk was very suggestive. But that guy goes all the way back over a decade when he was initially created. But the purpose of that video was to show you, and it's been an oft requested feature, that can we just take a character from anywhere, you know, without following the GameGuru Max bone rig and all the rest of it. Can I just get a character and then I know the animations, but I want to have a behavior controller? Well, that's what the NPC Control Behavior does. It will let you identify X number of common animations like idle and walk and attack, and then specify those within the behavior and apply the behavior to that character model, and then the character runs around your level, obeying all the things that a character ought to do, but using the animation that you've provided. And you don't need to worry about bone rigs or anything like that. As long as you know what the animation start and end frames are, and you can give them names, and that's all you need to get started with the NPC control script. So check out that. That's going to happen as an AXP build. If it's not already out there, it'll be out there very soon, so keep an eye out for that one. But the thing I want to show you today is RPG flavoured, and I'm going to start off just to give you a little of an overview, because that's been a couple of weeks, and if you just joined us, you will no idea what I'm talking about. RPG role-playing game. For the longest time, GameGuru Max has been able to create shooters, and we always said that we'd add RPG and puzzle elements before we released version 1, and that's what we've been working on for the last month or so, which is all the bits you expect in an RPG game. The inventory, player skills, map views, crafting, shopkeepers, treasure chests, you get the idea. And so we're building out both the front end and the back end logic to make all of that stuff happen. And I think the best way to do that, as you can see here just briefly, this is the storyboard where every single game screen you're ever going to need for your game can be laid out and connected to each other. And these here, these are the things we're working on right now. A HUD for your main game, so when you're running around regular, these are all the things like health and lives or whatever you want to display, your compass, etc. And then inventory, then player skills and app views, crafting. Each one has their own screen. We're creating all the front-end widgets and connecting them up to some gameplay at the back end. Best way to demonstrate 2 of those screens is just to run it and play. So that's what we're going to do now. So this is a usual, you probably recognize this from previous broadcasts, kind of kept it. So we spend all our time coding instead of creating pretty levels. So we're just going to play. And I'll show you what we've got. Change the in-game HUD a little bit, but the thing we've been really working on is here, the inventory. So you've got an inventory grid, you've got detailed view of an item you've selected, hotkeys down the bottom, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and some buttons which have miraculously made an appearance. So what I'm going to do is collect some mana. And if we go to the inventory and select that what we've just collected, you'll see it's herbal poultice, a portion of mana. We can drop it or we can use it, so we'll use it. If we go back, you'll actually see we've got a little bit of mana in our mana bar now. If we go to this box, this interesting looking box, and collect it, and go to our inventory, we've got a box of gloves. So we've got some gloves we can wear if we want to. And instead of using it, we can drop it. And now if we go back into the game, you'll see that we've actually dropped the box, but we can obviously collect it again if we wanted to. But there's not much point, the gloves don't actually do anything. If we go to here, stamina, you can see we've got now a herbal stamina, a vial of stamina potion. And again, if we want to, we can use that. And you can see our stamina at the top bar there, just gone up from 100 to 110. And so you get the idea of, and this is what we're working on right now, a scroll which gives you similar abilities to pick it up and do things within your inventory, and display all the properties, drop them, use them, whatever you want to do. Another thing I'd like to show you is this little icon down here. This is actually going to allow you to take something from your inventory and drop it into your hotkeys bar. So let's say you've got 20 potions. You want to be playing a game and hit and stab a hotkey really quick to use a health potion or a mana potion or a stamina potion, whatever it happens to be. You don't have to keep going to the inventory bar. You can just have a hotkey bar, press the key, boom, and you can configure the keys for each of these slots. Each key can be different based on the slots that you're placing things in. So that's where we're up to right now. Obviously we need to do a few more things. It's not just about health, mana and stamina. There's other elements to an RPG that you would consider to be required out of the box. So we're going to create some objects and some behaviors and connect it, make sure it all works with the inventory before we can call it done. But another thing you'll have noticed is now you can have custom mouse pointers. So this little hand is actually been specified from the storyboard screen editor. I just picked an image and said, you are the pointer, and all of a sudden it becomes the pointer. Another thing I'd like to show, this was a bit of a, it's actually done today because it was in my inbox, and the person who requested it, I respect, and doing a lot of work on the back end and the community, so I thought I'll add it, which is this. This is something that Necrim wrote called night vision goggles. See, we're in night vision mode, but for the longest time, and the biggest problem, is that the HUD, sorry, the screen sprites, the overlays that come with these special behaviors like night vision, rendered over the top of your official in-game HUDs, and so it would hide them sometimes, which is absolutely not what you want. So we've changed the system around now, so sprites that are rendered in your behaviors are now in the background, and all of the HUD elements, all the HUD gadgets are now rendered in the foreground. But we have added something. Added? Yes, that's a new word I invented. We've added the ability for you to select any number of sprites in your script and force them on top of everything if you want to. But by default, and I think it's quite correct, that the sprites from your game behaviors are in the back, and then your HUD, your health, your armor, all the rest of it, your compass, they're rendered in the foreground. But you have the ability to put them back, background or foreground. It's entirely up to you. It's just this is the default, and the night vision looks pretty cool. So I just wanted to show you that was thrown in, and it was very necessary. Let me show you some other things. Little things, collectible settings. Remember that was a placeholder. Now it does a real thing. So let me just give you some background knowledge. The potion is specified here is collectible. So when you click is collectible, an extra module pops up called collectible settings. What this does, it connects that 3D object to one of these. And one of these is what's called the collectibles item list. These are all of the objects, not just in your level, but in your entire game, that is something you're going to use, collect, find, discover, make. Any kind of object for your RPG game is in a big list. And this is that big list, which allows you to connect any 3D object to the object that you've created as an item for your game. So you could collect something here. It's identified as, for example, you can see this one. It's as named because we named the object the same as the herbal poultice, which of course is the default, which means you don't have to constantly keep connecting up every object. But if you wanted to, you could say, you know what, this is just a regular health. I just wanted to collect it, get 10, plus 10. Well, you can, if they've got a plus 10 item, you can just select it and say, well, I want, every time you collect that 3D object, I want it to be that particular item. And that will either show up in your inventory, get used right away, depending on what the behavior is. But now the collectible settings has actually been populated, and we can tick that one off, moving on to very shortly onto the player skills system. The last thing to do on the inventory is, as I showed you earlier, dragging something from your inventory into your hotkeys panel and back again. And by extension, that system would also be used down the road for trading with characters, for shopkeepers, for collecting things from treasure chests you may find in your game, and transferring objects backwards and forwards. Because inventory containers have been designed in a very generic way, so once two have been created and you can transfer between them, we can have lots of different variations on that theme. Now you may have noticed, and I'll run it again. Something else that was added in, not last minute, but it has been talked about a while, but we've finally found some features for you. Parallax Occlusion mapping, everyone. So if you look at this, it just looks like a cobbled street, but if you look a little bit closer, don't you notice that you can see your side of the cobbles a little bit more than the other side of the cobbles? If I go around the other side and duck down, you might see a little bit clearer. It's subtle, doesn't have to be subtle. When it's not subtle, it looks absolutely ugly. But used correctly, with a combination of the correct strength value and texture, parallax occlusion mapping can add some extremely cool depth. That is a flat polygon, people. That's a flat polygon with a texture, and then you use a height field, or a bump map, used to be called, in order to create that extra granularity, and then the parallax occlusion mapping shader does the rest. Word of warning, it is performance intensive. It used to be very performance intensive back in the day. Graphics cards obviously have got a lot better, and you can add more of these sort of surfaces, but please don't go crazy. And the reason I say they're not always super perfect is, let me just show you this. If I just move backwards and forwards, can you see there's something weird going on between that path and that cobble? That's because the artists, when they created that bump map, the height map, whatever you want to call it, got a little... the heights are important, and they need to work across a seamless texture. And this is a situation where that path and these cobbles were probably from two different textures brought together, but the heights don't agree, and that's what you end up with. It's a strong technique, but it has to be respected. So that's now in the EXP builder. It will be very soon. All you need to do is provide your texture PBR set with an underscore height, .dds or PNG, and you instantaneously get access to parallax occlusion mapping. Just respect the technique, understand that it's a performance hit, and use it wisely and carefully. And any artists out there, super look forward to seeing what you do with this technique in the weeks and months to come. So I'm really, really pleased to be able to add that in. And when we do our proper update down the road, I'll do a little bit of expose on the things you can do with parallax occlusion mapping, because it is a pretty cool technique, and it means you can represent literally tens of thousands of polygons on a single sheet of 2 polygon, which is pretty cool. Okay, as I said, let me just go onto the inventory again. This is the next thing we're going to be working on, hotkeys. So at the moment it's just 1 through 0, and the reason I've started with that is, if you think about it, you already had hotkeys. It was the weapon system. Remember when you collected a weapon and you had to press like 1 or 2 or 4 to get that weapon? Well, we're expanding that system, or rather throwing that system away and using the current inventory system as its replacement. And as part of that, we're going to have it so certain panels can have hotkeys, just like your 1 through 9 and 0 to put the weapon away. And we're going to add little icons for the weapons as well. So effectively, we're just bringing the weapon system up to today's standard of, now you'll be able to see the weapons that you've collected in your game in your inventory. And they'll pre-populate the hotkeys area by default. Obviously, that behavior can be changed. But it's essentially just bringing the weapon system in and folding it into the inventory system. So you'll actually already know what a hotkey is, because you've been using it for years if you're a long-time GameGuru user. And that will be our introduction. And then beyond that, of course, take a weapon out of the slot, put something else in, like a consumable, a mana or a health or whatever it is that you want. So that's what I wanted to show you. I don't think I've missed anything out. I kept scrolling things in at the last minute, turning into quite a list, so I didn't forget anything. But I think I've pretty much covered everything. So I hope you enjoy seeing the progress so far. And without further ado, let's get on and see if there's any worthy questions. And I'll be happy to provide some answers. Okay, I'm going to drag out the live chat. Like so. Oops. Yeah, okay. And we'll get to the top and we'll look for a question mark and we'll see if we can get all the answers done today. We'll give ourselves 10 minutes, shall we? We're 21 minutes in. We'll try and keep this broadcast to 30 minutes. Nice round number. And let's see if you've got any questions for little Lee. Okay, scrolly. I think the first question mark hits about halfway down. This is from Nigel. Hi all, could you tell me why I keep on getting ball-like marbles in my development of my game? Ball-like marbles in the development of my game. I know it sounds cryptic, but actually exactly what you mean. Little white spheres where objects should be. That sphere was deliberate. That's telling you that it can't find the model. So that would definitely happen if you created an FPE and you previously used that FPE and it had a model, and then for whatever reason you changed the model name or you deleted the model object. The level still knows about that object, it just doesn't know what the model geometry is. And so because it can't load that model file, it sticks a little sphere in, just to remind you that I'm still here, just give me my model geometry back. So that's what the little marbles mean. Hope it helps. Okay, looking for another question mark. Oh, here we go. This is from BRS Reviews. GameGuru Max only makes FPS, question mark. At the moment, yes. If you got GameGuru Max and you downloaded it from Steam, it's basically running around with guns, shooting at stuff. There's plenty of other behaviours in there, so you can make like a non-shooter game. But yeah, generally, first-person shooter is what you're going to get. What we're working on right now is RPG, which of course is put those guns away. Now you can run around, talk to characters, collect objects, complete quests, do trading, do crafting, mining, all that kind of cool stuff. So that's what we're working on right now. So at the end of this process, it will be FPS and RPG. Along the way, we'll introduce enough mechanics to also tick off the puzzle genre as well. And those are the three that we're going to ship with when we leave early access and go into version 1. So you'll have shooter, RPG, and a variety of puzzle mechanics for you to make games out of it. And of course, the whole kit and caboodle can be merged together. It could be mostly FPS with a bit of RPG, mostly RPG with a little bit of puzzle. It's up to you, but it's definitely easy to combine all these different behaviours and systems and mechanics together. Here's a question from Duke229. Any news about fully working multiplayer for GameGuru Classic? No news as yet. As you can imagine, all our energies are focused on getting GameGuru Max to version 1. And no distraction will allow us to slow down on that mission. And because of that, there hasn't been a line of code attended in respect to multiplayer for GameGuru Classic. Just to give you some background for everyone who needs to know, multiplayer mostly works using the Steam API, but as soon as you introduce custom content, then it falls down a little. Steam API changed at some point in the last 7 years, and it no longer works with the custom media, and we use the workshop system in order to get that custom media transferred from user to user. But the whole thing was a bit disappointing for most users because you had to have a copy of GameGuru Classic in order to play a multiplayer game with your friends. Since then, we've been working on a technology called Photon, which doesn't need Steam, which means your friend doesn't need to own GameGuru Classic to play that multiplayer. And that was basically the ambition. Once we are freed up our time and resources are available, we're just going to replace the multiplayer system with the Photon tech, fix the bug at the same time, naturally, and then any multiplayer game that you make will be able to be played by anyone, not just people who own it on Steam. So that just gives you some background, but yeah, no movement yet, and there is unlikely to be until you hear the announcement that we've left early access on GameGuru Max. Here's a question from Crow Hill Studios. Can the visual for inventory be customizable? Totally customizable. We set up with a mission that we didn't want to do the visuals for the inventory, the player's skills, map views, shopping and crafting. Otherwise, everyone's game's going to look the same. And 2D, it's very obvious. I mean, 3D, different lighting, different scaling, rotations. You can get away with using the same asset in interesting different ways. 2D, there is no such subterfuge. If you have some 2D on your game that looks the same as someone else's 2D, it's going to look like the same game. Or you've ripped somebody else's game. So yeah, full customizability is out of the box. In fact, when you go into the screen editor, you'll start with a blank screen. And then you can bring in all your own images, assign them to do different things, lay them out the way you want, and they'll go into your game and work, and it's completely customizable. Not just visuals, but audio as well. Okay, scrolly. It looks like we're going to get all the questions answered today, which is awesome. And the question mark next hits in at here from Dadgood. Will the Parallax Occlusion mapping work with VR? I had to think about that. It's a good question. The wicked engine that we're basing GameGuru Max version 1 on never really had VR support. Certainly has support for rendering multiple cameras, and I'm just thinking through the process. Yes, POM will work with VR because when we render the second camera, that is a separate set of passes through that shader. We're not copying and doing sneaky little hacks. We're just re-rendering the scene from a different eye position, and the POM will work under that situation just as it does with the single camera render. So you can quote me on that if you like. It would look really weird. In fact, it would look quite distorted if POM didn't work in VR. Worst case scenario, we have to switch POM off in VR for one of two reasons. One, it doesn't work in stereoscopic, or two, it kills the performance. But certainly I'm not going to make that decision for you on the performance side if you've got a nice rig and you want POM on VR, even if it costs a lot more performance. Because as I said, back in the day, that shader was hugely expensive to run in your games. Maybe not so much these days, but VR doubles that cost for anything that you render to the screen. Okay, question. This is from Dennis. When will we be able to update our AMD Radeon drivers to the latest recommended and not get black screen anymore? Right, yeah, there's been a few reports there. I think with the latest Adrenaline drivers, there's some black screen reported, and people have to step back, like 1 or 2 driver versions, to not get the black screen anymore. You could argue that it's an AMD issue and we're having to circumnavigate it. or it's our issue and we ought to be supporting the latest greatest. But consider the latest and greatest isn't DX11, it's DX12. AMD are probably focusing most of their time on DX12 and hoping that DX11 is quietly forgotten about. And it could actually be that's the crux of the thing, that DX11 didn't get the same love that DX12 got, and someone dropped the ball and sabotaged a lot of DX11 experiences. Not looked at it yet, but yeah, we do take these things very seriously. We're not releasing version 1 without fixing these serious problems. Half the planet have AMD. We've got to make sure that it works on everyone's computer who are above or at our minimum spec. Crowhill asks another question. Since there will be mining, collecting stuff in inventory, crafting, building bases. No, this is not Command and Conquer. There is no... The actual abbreviation is RTS, Real-Time Strategy Games. We're not planning GameGuru Max to do RTS games. For that, building bases and getting your peons to chop down trees, you're most likely going to have to look for a different game maker. It's just, we can do so much. I think that's one step too far. But certainly mining in the sense of going into a forest and killing rats and skinning them and eating them, or going into a forest and chopping a tree and getting wood and getting stuff like that and then crafting with it, sure. But actually building out whole bases and adding to a map and expanding it and stuff like that, yeah, that's more RTS. Well, we're probably not ever going to get into that. It's just like a game maker that can create literally any game imaginable. That's going to be a big product. So yeah, you probably want to be looking elsewhere. See if there's like an RTS game maker out there. I haven't heard of one. It sounds like a good idea if anyone wants to take a massive project on board. Dude from 1972 asks, Lee, have you thought about creating various types of puzzles which would need to be solved in order to unlock doors, chests, etc.? I could envisage some sort of puzzle maker tool. Sure, we have, in fact, if you just little my arrow, you see that little head with the cog in it? That's the visual logic system. That allows you to have like one puzzle, and then the outcome of that puzzle you can connect to the input of the next puzzle, which might be a door that needs unlocking, etc., and chain them together. And perhaps down the road, little logic things like you need two puzzles solving, which go into an AND gate, and then the output of that unlocks a third puzzle that you need to solve. Lots of cool and wonderful things that are in the ether, but sure, right now you can chain together a sequence of puzzles that eventually get that player through the rooms and the obstructions, eventually getting to the end of it, and then you can move on to the next level, etc. That's kind of the whole point of a puzzle game genre, to go through these sequences, and we do want to interconnect as well, so you can actually make your own puzzles out of simpler building blocks. That will be a real fun thing to do, and your game will be unique as a result. Mr. V. So what progress is there in the RPG section? Well, if you just refer back to the last 20 minutes of broadcast, that is the current progress of the RPG section. Things that remain is player skill, map view, crafting, and trading and shopkeeping. So yeah. Go back 20 minutes and then go back 3 weeks, because there's also information on what we was talking about back then on RPG as well. When will GameGuru Max be available for the Mac? We are not planning to do a Mac version of GameGuru Max. We're not planning to do cross-platform on GameGuru Max. It will be a Windows-only title for the foreseeable future. Question from I Am the Rampage. Is there a way to change the enemy damage output to the player, or is that changed in script? You can change that both ways. You can increase the player's health, or you can reduce the amount of damage that the enemy can inflict upon you, and you can change the damage that your weapons inflict on anybody else. All of those are available nice and easily through user definable properties. You don't have to go into scripts to do that kind of stuff. We are going to be working on some interesting things where you can modulate the amount of damage based on some factors, like upgrading your weapon, or your enemy happens to have a shield that works really well against energy weapons, etc. So there'll be modulations on that final damage application, but for the sort of going in and then 20 minutes later you've got a game, sure, you can change those damage and health properties, no problem. Okay, question mark, another one from Vi. Anyone else also missed the basic name? Oh wow, you're going back a bit. Yeah, me. I miss the Dirt Basic days, but yeah, that's just me reminiscing. I don't think we're going to see the return of Dirt Basic. No one likes programming these days. Everyone likes to just click stuff together and then 20 minutes later get really disappointed that they've not made $1 million. But yeah, I'd love to see the return of programmers and programming languages, but yeah. Everyone's moving on, it seems. AI will take over and then no human needs to program again. How disappointing. Okay, another question from Mr. V. Will the interface for GameGuru Max change? Looks very childish with big buttons, or is it coming to tablets? We're not planning to support cross-platform for GameGuru Max. That includes other physical devices. We may extend a bit of grace with the Steam thing. Like the Steam thing. That big long tablet thing that actually runs PC software. That I've got one of those. It looks pretty cool. I'm going to play with it. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But that's the only tablet you'll ever see GameGuru Max on. As to the fact that GameGuru Max looks childish, that's fine. It looks like what it looks like. If you don't like it, there are plenty of other prosumer titles out there that look less childish and other ones that look more childish. I think you just have to find your sweet spot, perhaps. Okay, it looks like no one else is talking, just Mr. V. So I'm looking at the clock. We're at 35 minutes, so I've added 60 minutes of answers. So yeah, I think everyone sort of stopped asking at the 10-minute mark. So thanks for that. It allows me to chop this video up. I'm trying to get it to 30 minutes on YouTube. So thanks very much for all your attentions. I'll be back next week with more RPG news, which will be 7 PM on Wednesday, GMT. So be there or be square. And for those who joined us live, thanks very much for your kind attention. And I'll speak to you all next week. Until then, goodbye.